To the eye, it is simply a car and a driver racing against the clock on a Sunday afternoon. But behind that 2-hour spectacle lies one of the most extraordinary money machines in all of sport. A world where a single afternoon can cost tens of millions of pounds, and where every bolt, every litre of fuel, every second of running has a price tag attached. Consider this. A modern Formula One car is not a single object, but a jigsaw of some 14,000 individual components, each one designed, machined and tested to tolerances finer than a human hair, and each one carrying a cost that would make an ordinary motorist gasp. The whole thing is worked and reworked by hundreds of engineers in wind tunnels running around the clock, chasing improvements measured in mere thousandths of a second. And all of it, the factories, the wages, the endless travel across 5 continents, must somehow be paid for. Over the chapters to come, we shall follow that money from the sponsor's check to the shattered carbon fibre of a first-lap crash and discover just how much it truly costs to be the fastest in the world. Let us begin then where so much of the money begins, with the beating heart of the machine itself, the power unit. Gone are the simple engines of decades past. Today's Formula One power unit is a marvel of hybrid engineering. A turbocharged 1.6-litre motor married to a bank of electrical systems that recover energy from both the brakes and the exhaust. And it does not come cheap. A single one of these units is widely reported to cost somewhere in the region of £10 to £15 million to develop and build. £10 million. For an engine, yet a team may use only a handful across an entire season, for the rules strictly limit how many each driver is permitted. Exceed that number and the punishment comes not in pounds but in grid penalties on a Sunday afternoon. So the manufacturers guard these creations jealously, sealing them, monitoring them, nursing every mile of running as though it were pure gold. And that is merely the engine. We have not yet touched the tyres, the brakes, or the delicate carbon skin that wraps around it all, and each with a price of its own. And so we come to the tyres, those 4 black rings of rubber that are, quite literally, the only part of the car ever to touch the road. For all the millions poured into the engine, it is these 4 contact patches, each no larger than the palm of your hand, that decide whether a car grips or slides, wins or crashes. They are supplied by a single manufacturer to every team on the grid, and they are not sold but lent, carefully counted out and just as carefully collected again at the weekend's end. A single set is thought to cost somewhere in the region of £2,000, and a team will burn through dozens of sets across a race weekend. Practice, qualifying and the Grand Prix itself, the rubber shredding away lap by lap. Its life measured sometimes in a mere handful of tours before it is spent. For all their brief existence, these tyres shape the entire drama of a race, dictating when a driver must dive into the pit lane and surrender precious seconds to have them changed. And it is there, in that pit lane, amid the roar and the choreography, that we shall turn next to the astonishing spectacle of the modern pit stop. Picture the scene. A car hurtles down the pit lane at the very edge of the speed limit, and waiting for it stands a wall of humanity. Some 20 men and women crouched, coiled, every one of them holding their breath. The car halts on its marks, and then chaos, but chaos rehearsed to perfection. 4 wheels off, 4 wheels on, the car released back into the fray. And all of it, from the moment it stops to the moment it moves, in under 2.5 seconds. 2 seconds, faster than you can read this very sentence aloud. Behind that fleeting instant lies a fortune of preparation. The wheel guns alone are precision instruments costing thousands of pounds each, spinning at speeds that would tear a lesser tool apart. And the crew? They train like athletes, drilling the same choreography hundreds of times a week, because in this world, a fumbled wheel nut can cost not seconds, but an entire race. And with it, millions in prize money and prestige. But even the swiftest pit stop cannot save a car from the one thing every team dreads most, the accident. And it is to the true cost of a crash that we now must turn. A crash in the modern age is measured not merely in wreckage, but in pounds and pence. Consider that a single front wing, That intricate wall of carbon fibre, bristling with flaps and vanes, can cost well over £100,000 to design and build. And it is the very first thing to shatter when a car so much as brushes a barrier. A serious accident, the kind that folds a chassis and scatters bodywork across the track, can climb into the millions once the survival cell, the gearbox, the suspension, and the delicate aerodynamics are all tallied. Every component reduced to fragments must be replaced, often flown in overnight, rebuilt by hands working through the small hours before the next session dawns. For a team, one heavy shunt can wipe out a fortune in a single, sickening heartbeat. And so the question that haunts every garage is not only how fast a car can go, but how much it will cost when, inevitably, something goes wrong. And in recent years, that haunting question has been given a firm and unforgiving answer, a rule that reshaped the very soul of the sport. The cost cap. For the first time in Formula One's history, the teams were told that money alone could no longer buy victory. A ceiling was placed upon what each of them might spend across a single season, a figure of roughly £135 million, and tightening still further as the years passed. Suddenly, that shattered front wing carried a new and darker weight. Every splinter of carbon now counted against a budget that could not be exceeded. A single catastrophic crash could no longer simply be paid away by the richest teams. It ate into the money meant for development, for the upgrades that win championships. And so a driver's mistake in practice might quietly cost his team not just a replacement part, but the very races still to come. The price of speed, it turned out, had never truly been about the crash itself. It was about everything that crash would steal from the future. But if the cost cap changed how teams spent their money, it changed something else too. Something far harder to see. It changed the people. For decades, the great factories of Formula One had swollen with talent. Hundreds upon hundreds of engineers, designers, aerodynamicists, all drawing wages that now had to be counted against that unforgiving ceiling. And so the wealthiest teams, once free to hire without limit, found themselves facing a choice that no amount of money could soften: which brilliant minds to keep and which to let go. Suddenly the sport's most precious commodity was no longer horsepower, nor carbon fibre, nor the roar of an engine at 15,000 revolutions. It was efficiency, doing more with less, squeezing genius from a budget that would no longer bend. And in that quiet revolution, the balance of power in Formula One began, ever so slowly, to shift. Consider what this truly meant for the giants of the sport. Teams like Mercedes and Red Bull, who had for years poured colossal sums into their pursuit of perfection, spending by some estimates well beyond £400 million in a single season, now had to shed that spending down to a fraction of what it once was. It was, in every sense, an act of surgery upon a living body. Departments were reshaped, wind tunnel hours were rationed, and the endless gluttonous appetite for new parts every fortnight was suddenly, brutally curbed. Yet here lies the beautiful paradox at the heart of it all. For as the money contracted, the racing did not wither. It flourished. The smaller teams, those who had spent decades gasping in the wake of the wealthy, at last found the gap beginning to close. The playing field, once tilted so steeply toward the richest, was quietly being levelled. And that, perhaps, was the truest price of speed, not what it cost the teams, but what it finally gave back to the sport itself.